I'm not saying other departments don't have the level of commitment and passion about what they do, but that level of care to make sure people got paid was amazing. Payroll plays an extremely critical and valuable role in financial well-being and supporting that. So I think that's really key. Payroll people have bags of empathy because they just want to get people's pay right, and it really shows when it goes wrong. So I would just say to people, be yourself. Don't pretend to be something else. That logical reasoning thing is just ask questions. If you want help, just ask questions and just show some empathy.
Keeping businesses thriving, compliance and safe, forecasting strategy, it's all on our mind. It's time payroll took its place in the boardroom to shine.
Managing a global team is complex, but Deel makes it simpler with payroll, HR, IT, and compliance all in one place. That's why over 35,000 businesses trust Deel to hire, pay, and manage their teams worldwide. See how Deel works at deel.com/nickday. That's DEEL.com/NICKDAY. Deel, your forever people platform. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Payroll Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Nick Day. I'm the CEO at JGA Recruitment Group, and we are specialist payroll recruiters. So if you need support with any payroll vacancy, please do get in touch with either myself or one of my team. Of course, if you're new to this show, welcome. Everyone is welcome in the world of payroll. Please remember to either click subscribe or click follow. If you can review the show, I would be very, very grateful. But most importantly, if you can share this show with all of your payroll colleagues and friends, well, I'm hoping, along with my guests and my audiences, we can really help raise the profile of global payroll. Let's really get payroll appreciated. Let's really get payroll seen. And I've got a particular guest today who is helping that happen, and you'll find out why in due course. My guest today is, of course, Stuart Curtis, who is a partner at Price Bailey Chartered Accountants, where he also leads the Payroll Bureau. Now, Stuart's journey is a fascinating one. It's a little bit different. He started out as an accountant, and he's now head of payroll, leading a team of 15 for over 900 clients, generating... Well, I'll let Stuart give you all the nitty-gritty details in terms of just how valuable that payroll is. But let's just say I met Stuart recently, and I think he had a little bit of payroll imposter syndrome. He's come over from a different market, but what was absolutely intoxicating for Stuart was the passion that this industry has. And we're going to dive into why Stuart finds that so fascinating, why he's been intoxicated by payroll, but also how we can really start moving the bureau industry in particular forward. I think what really has shined since I met Stuart is his passion, not just for payroll, but for people, for colleagues, for the whole profession itself. So let's dive into that in just a moment. Stuart, welcome to the Payroll Podcast. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling really good, Nick. Thanks for having me, mate.
Really, really delighted to have you here. Well, you know my first question. It's going to be this. What does the word payroll mean to you?
So I think on an earlier podcast this year, someone said it's the heartbeat of every organization. And I struggle to top that one. I've used it in some LinkedIn posts that I've done. I've used it with colleagues. But I would add to that probably that payroll plays an extremely critical and valuable role in financial well-being and supporting that. So I think that's really key.
Absolutely right. I'm glad you brought that up. I have a feeling we might dive into that topic in a little bit more detail in just a moment as well. So let's go a little bit, let's rewind slightly and talk a little bit about your background, because you trained and worked as an accountant. So how did you first get pulled into this wonderful world of payroll, and what's made you stay?
I wasn't pulled in. I took on the role based back in 2017. So payroll was within our business team. So it was within an accounts department. And we had payroll members in each office. And in Cambridge, where I worked from time to time, there were 4 team members. And the head of that team, Amy, was going on sabbatical for a year. So as a director and team leader in the business team, I was asked by the head of business, Howard, would I keep an eye on the other 3, which was Zoe, Nikki and AJ. So that's what I did. I just kept an eye on how they were doing, just checked in with them, helped them out where I could. And whilst Amy was off, we made an acquisition which had a significant payroll offering in it. So I helped with the integration there as well. Amy comes back from sabbatical and I helped her look at some job specs, because to that date, payroll were graded like accountants, which is totally wrong. So we brought out job specs with the help of HR, and we got to 2019, and I knew then that payroll was going to become its own department from April 2020. That's what the board had decided. they could see the value in it. They were looking at the financials. They could see the value in it. Let's separate it out from business. And I was told, look, you're going to be promoted to partner from April 2020. You'll be a partner on business team clients, so delivering accounts, tax, advisory work. Would you also like to head up payroll? And it was pretty much an instant yes from me. It was very little and ahhing from me. I just said yes straight away. So that's really how I got into it.
Now, I'm going to ask you a little bit of well, maybe I'm going to make a controversial statement from my lens as a recruiter, right? So
Yep.
for years, for 2 decades, since I've been seeing adverts and companies post adverts out there, and often I will say, look, I understand you may or may not want to use an agency. Obviously, that's what we do. But if you don't, the kind of people that are going to respond to your advert potentially are going to be accountants or bookkeepers who may have used Sage. They may have got payroll on their CV, but actually they're not payroll professionals. And for me, there's a vast difference between those that come in from an accountancy side who may have got payroll written on their CV, but haven't really focused on that as a standalone role, versus those that have done payroll solely for a number of years and really been entrenched and involved in payroll teams. And often that prediction comes true, and then the client will say, "You're absolutely right. We've got all these accountants. It wasn't what we were looking for. Nick, can you give us a hand?" But I'm interested to know 2 things. One, you've made that step over. So am I wrong in that thinking? Like, how hard is it to make that transition from an accountancy team? I know obviously you're slightly more senior level into the world of payroll. But secondly, and quite an exciting question is, what's the advantage? What's the viewpoint that you've had coming from that background that maybe has really helped your payroll team because you're looking at it with a slightly different perspective?
Uh, The instant decision was based on the team. Particularly with Amy and Zoe. I've been in accountancy for a long time, and they're 2 of the best managers I've ever worked with. So that made that decision easier. I think from an accountant's perspective, and particularly during the furlough times,
Yeah.
'cause that's when it all started for me at the start of the first lockdown as head of payroll. As an accountant, your mindset is, I've got 9 months to get this filed. That's you've got your deadline. Sometimes it's a year. It was longer in furlough because they delayed filing deadlines. So,
Sure.
but payroll's never had that. Payroll's never had that luxury. And just for me, just getting to understand how the team work, hitting deadlines week after week, month after month, quarter after quarter, and how they dealt particularly with that furlough time as well. That really geared up my passion. It just was elevated by how they reacted in those, particularly that first quarter, April, May, June. They don't like talking about. I don't blame them. They don't like talking about that time, but they worked so hard, and I could see that that there was no way they could just put this off. They had to do it. It all had to be done. All playing a vital role. So they were displaying such a level of passion, commitment, and a level of empathy to make sure people got paid. And again, if we hadn't had that furlough time, maybe that would have taken me longer to recognise. But I recognised early on this is a great team. I was really proud to be their voice. So, but I was still doing the accounting role. So I was still doing with clients there. You've got those longer deadlines, but with
Yeah.
payroll, I'm not saying other departments don't have the level of commitment and passion for what they do, but that level of care to make sure people got paid in such a hard time for so many people was amazing. I mean, I was doing 9-10 hour days, and I felt bad because they were doing more than that. They were working hard on that. They don't let me loose with the software. They don't let me anywhere near the software at all. I was really proud to be their voice. Really proud to be their voice, and they really put payroll on the map at Price Bailey, and it got us noticed and recognised. But my God, they it was a step out of their comfort zone, and they did incredibly well. So it was a real steep learning curve for me to realise what a great function this is, what a great service this is, and what an undervalued service it was at that time.
Interesting. I know that I've read some of your social posts where I know you're a big believer that it's people, not numbers, that drive you. It's been part of your philosophy, or
Yes.
certainly that's how I understand your philosophy to be. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes, I mean, I'll go back to when I was dating my wife. She would introduce me as this is Stuart. He's an accountant, but he's not like normal accountants. And I was a
Mhm.
little bit offended by that. I thought, well, you having a pop at my sector there? We're not good things of other professions, which I won't say. But when I think about it, I thought, yeah, she's right. I just I struggled through school with maths. I've never. I mean, I deal with numbers. I have to deal with numbers, but my real passion is the people behind that. because if you don't have those people functioning and working well, the numbers won't come out. So yeah, very much been a people person, and got the opportunity to become a qualified coach back in 2015, which absolutely changed how I work, how I interact, and not just in the coaching environment. When I'm going to events and things like that, you just learnt so much from that. And I think maybe if I discovered coaching earlier in my career, I might have moved out of accountancy. I might have done. But if I'd have done that, I wouldn't have got into payroll. So I'm glad I didn't.
Fair enough. I do have to say, I think we both did a similar qualification through the ILM, but coaching,
Yes.
it's once you've gone
Yeah.
through it, it kind of changes your view on quite a few things. It can be life changing. I mean, it's
I can
there's
see what
always
we
stuff
wanted
to
to
learn.
do as a firm, because we needed internal coaches to support people
Sure.
in coaching them. But it gave me so much as well. I really gained confidence from it, and really enjoyed that aspect of it. When I started doing it, I mean, you may understand this. I was almost thinking, what question am I going to ask next? Because you hadn't learnt the questioning skills that you learn in coaching, and that comes from listening. So I'm very much, I listen more than I speak. And once you start to genuinely listen to someone when you are coaching or wherever you are, the questions just pop out. So you suddenly move away from thinking, oh, what we're going to ask next. Then you forget what they're saying because you're thinking about what question to ask next.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think it's just always been a people person, and that coaching, being given the opportunity to do a qualified coaching course has just, yeah, been brilliant.
Well, you mentioned, I want to go back slightly. You mentioned earlier that Price Bailey really put itself on the map for payroll within the organization. Sometimes, even within bureaus, or certainly within accountancy functions, payroll can still be the underappreciated kind of
Um,
department. It can be revenue generating, but it doesn't necessarily get the investment it needs. I
yeah.
understand you've grown your bureau now to serve almost or just over 900 clients. What were some of the biggest opportunities and challenges you've had in both promoting the payroll operation and function internally and externally, but also in expanding the service line?
I think the first one that came along was the furlough claims work. So that was, we were fortunate enough to be a firm of a size where we had a separate team doing the claims on the portal, so the payroll team didn't have to do that. But I can remember talking. I remember talking to our managing partner Martin, saying, "How do we price this? This is a really tough time for people. Are we going to charge for this?" And he would speak to other managing partners, other firms. Some weren't going to charge, some were. So we decided to price it. And we had it with basically a fixed fee, and we increased it per employee in bands of 5. And it was painful to start with because the team were all learning the scheme. Lots of new guidance came out, didn't it? And you literally had to adapt to it. I can remember one client ringing me and saying, "Have you read the new update?" And I said, "Look, if you've read it, and it only came out 10 minutes ago, you know more than I do." So it just evolved so quickly. But by the end of that furlough scheme, we added around 30% to our annual income from the fees we generated from that. And the team became highly efficient by the end. The learning curve they experienced with that. That was probably the first opportunity I recognized. But before anyone knew what was happening with lockdown, I was being told, right, you're going to be head. So you're thinking of things, right? What am I going to do? What am I going to work on? Fee increases for the first one. So I knew as an accountant within Price Bailey, there were lots of clients where the fees hadn't changed for 15, 20 years, but
Mm.
other fees had gone up. So we were no different in that respect, but that had to be parked whilst we got through furlough. So 22, 23, we probably had about 600 clients and 500 or 600 clients. And Amy headed this up. She's done an amazing job with it. You've got about 600 clients that all need a fee increase, or some were getting fee increase anyway, but we thought everyone's going to get a fee increase. Those had to be communicated at the appropriate time, and we weren't in control of all the billing then. We're still not in control of all the billing at Price Value, but we control a lot of it. Where we weren't, we had to communicate with other departments, other managers, other partners. Look, can you get this message across? Do you want us to do it? So it took a long time, but now we're in our 4th year of doing that. It's become habit. Our clients expect a payroll fee increase. So that project's done really well. One we've done more recently, another opportunity I saw is it's quite hard to grow a bureau offering within a practice because we make mistakes sometimes. Our clients don't leave us ordinarily for a mistake we make. It's sometimes
Sure.
it's how we react to that mistake. They think, wow, I really like what you've done there, and stay with you. So winning work is quite challenging, and you do have a churn of clients you lose because the scheme closes, they get merged, there's buyouts. So I was thinking we rely a lot on internal referrals for our wins, which is great, and I thank my colleagues for that. But I recognise we're just giving too much time away. So accountancy firm, we're driven by timesheets. The payroll team have all buy into the timesheets, they understand that. But I could see the costs. We're just throwing time away where we've done a rerun or we've said this to them, we've given them some advice or something like that. So I introduced 2 new service lines, payroll extras and payroll advisory work. And Amy and I worked on what that would look like. So I heavily rely on Amy for operational stuff. You tell me what you think is advisory work,
Sure.
what's extras. So we look at the contract of engagement we have with them and say, well, anything outside of that is going to be an extra or advisory. If it's advisory, it carries a premium. It will carry a 25% premium because there's risk for us and it's really valuable what we're doing. And that would typically be around pensions, but not actually pensions advice, because when we can't give pensions advice, looking at contributions, determining whether it's pensionable pay or not. So we've had a few big projects like that. So I brought that in, and with some discipline with the team on how they post that time, our fees on that line of work doubled in just over a year. So we don't get all that time back but we stand a better chance of challenging clients and telling clients, look, we've got these costs, and speaking with our colleagues as well, where they've got the relationship, to at least have that conversation with the client. Say, okay, let's charge 75% of that. So it hasn't meant all the extras in advisory work's charged for, but it's just changed perception. Don't throw time away. So
Sure.
that was another key area that we've looked at. Looking forward, the main areas for me are going to be payroll and benefits. Is going to be a massive opportunity there. I really like that because I've done a few P11Ds in my time, so I know about P11Ds. Some I can actually help the team with at last, and a big opportunity for us. And we've already got a pricing scale out for that. And again, another one that's going to be on the immediate horizon for me is the integration with payroll and HR. That functionality where we have clients that have an HR platform, they want to integrate with a payroll platform. We're looking at ways where we can do that going forward. There's so much opportunity. It's really exciting because I think furlough really helped put us on the map. It increased our fees, and then there was a little bit of a dip maybe where there was a bit of growth, but you do lose clients each year. But now we've got these big opportunities. But in between that, it's been the fee increases and just trying not to give that time away. Just getting that mindset with colleagues and peers, please. Don't always throw it away with other services. Why throw it away with payroll?
Having that handle. I don't know if my listeners will agree if they're nodding or not on this, but obviously I've interviewed an awful lot of payroll professionals and heads of. But I can tell your accountancy background. You've got a real hand on the numbers, and payroll people typically on this show will talk. Obviously, they always have a handle on the numbers, but maybe would articulate themselves slightly differently. But I can see you in the role that you have. You obviously need to have that control. You need to understand what the numbers are, what that means from a strategic business profit perspective. What I like about it is I've been talking for a long time about how we need to move payroll from cost center to value driver or profit driver. And clearly that's something you've been able to do. You've been able to build your client base, turn payroll to a standalone function, which I think you did in April 2020 at Price Bailey. And now it's actually generating revenues for you. We're now starting to change the way that we look at payroll, not always just paying out. I know it's a bureau service, but just how successful it can be when we commercialize it as a bureau operation to say, hey, this is a really valuable function that should be within most accountancy practices, really. If they give the time, attention, and appreciation to it, this could be a fundamental foundation to the accountancy practice here. It can generate huge revenues. It can bring in clients. We can upsell, of course, other services, audit, tax, whatever it might be. But 900 clients is pretty significant. I think it's just, for me, it's quite interesting to hear it from yourself because you have that accountancy background. I think whether you know or not, subconsciously, it does come through. It does come through.
Yeah, you can't get the account. You can't take the accountant out of me. I think because from April 2020, we're our own department. We've got our own P&L account. So the board are seeing that, the partner team are seeing that, and the margin we make is one of the best of any department. And that's come through just how brilliant and efficient the team are at what they do, but also some automation as well. So probably ourselves and the outsourcing department are kind of leading the way with that automation side, because they're probably the ones you would see as being the ones that would drive some automation initially. So that margin is quite nice to see, the margin we make.
So let's dive into the automation piece for a moment, because we know that everyone's talking about automation, everyone's talking about AI. How are you thinking now in terms of the future? Are you starting to embed AI in your process to help as well as automation, or are you classing them as one and the same? What's your view on the future tech
I
stack?
I even when we introduced a robot into, so we use Iris and PayCircle at the moment, and within Iris we know that's a legacy product, so we introduced robotics into that about 2-3 years ago. The message there doesn't change what the message will be now and going forward. It's there to co-work with us. It's not there to remove people. It just frees up people for growth and to just, spend more time with clients. So my view is it's co-working with the team. We're trying to get that message across to the team. It's co-working with you. Looking forward with AI, I think we've got a meeting coming up in a couple of weeks where we're looking at an AI agent within payroll to help with the work. So maybe helping with the compliance process, because I think sometimes, again, accountancy background, checklist, love a checklist. In payroll, we have some checklists because we review, a large majority of our work gets reviewed. But if AI can come in and help with that review, can highlight where the variances are to save someone looking at it, I see that as really valuable. So I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but we've got a co-pilot group within the payroll team. And off the back of that and the feedback I gave, I said I'd be really interested in looking into an AI agent again. I'm not sure what that looks like, but we've got a meeting in a
Sure.
couple of weeks' time with our IT team to sort of discuss what that might look like. So
It sounds like you're embracing it rather than being fearful of it. And as you say, it's there to
yes,
augment and coexist rather than replace, which I think is, it's
yeah.
encouraging for those listening to this who aren't sure how the leaders are approaching AI within their functions. With everything you've done, it sounds like you've got a very successful practice. You said you've increased margins, you've increased your client base, it's now a standalone function. What do you think are the keys to running a successful bureau inside an accountancy practice?
Um, Buy-in at the top. It will be a lot easier if you're running the payroll function inside an accountancy firm. If you've got buy-in at the top, that's what I have, buy-in at the top. We made payroll its own department. I have the support of the board. Yes, they challenge me. I set a budget and I present the budget to them, and they quite rightly challenge me, and that's good. That's refreshing. But I have their support, and I catch up with a couple of the board members individually as well, which I really value that opportunity. If someone hasn't got that luxury, they're not a department, there isn't, that sort of buying at the top, you need a champion, you need an ally that isn't in the payroll team. Doesn't have to be in accounts, might be in a tax team, or someone that understands what you're going through there and how you're working as hard as you are. Fees are being generated, but time's been written off and it's just not recognized. So it's just finding that ally. For me, is finding an ally or champion within your firm that actually isn't in the payroll team, and just to get them on your side. Someone who's quite influential that can speak to the partner team or the board there and just say, look at what the payroll team are doing. Most firms, if they've got fairly robust financial records, are going to be able to pull out the payroll information
Yeah.
and see what sort of recovery it's making, what margin it's making. And I'm only responsible down to the gross profit margin. After that, it's not down to me. That's overheads, they get allocated. So I'm responsible down to gross profit margin. I think most payroll heads within accountancy firms could be able to get the information, because most accountancy firms have fairly robust systems that can find the information out. But if you haven't got that buy-in at the top, you need an ally or a champion. You need to find someone that can support you.
I was going to ask if you could answer the how, because obviously you went straight into you have buy-in. You kind of tackled that with the sense to find someone who can be your advocate or your ally to make that message. One thing people may not understand if they're listening to this, maybe they're working in an in-house payroll function and never worked in accountancy practice before, certainly a partner-led practice. One of the difficulties that I know from speaking to payroll managers for the last 20 years about this, one of the biggest challenges of working in accountancy bureau is you've got multiple bosses. It's not just often just one boss. You've got partners from different functions, equitable, different, all got different priorities. They all need to turn a profit, or they've got a revenue line attached to their business operation. What advice would you give to the payroll managers who either are moving into that environment, haven't experienced it before, or even those that are already there that struggle to appease and look after all their different partner bosses, if you like. But at the same time, they really want to improve the message, improve the profile of payroll. Now, how do you find that allyship? It must be quite challenging. Attention payroll leaders. If you're listening to this, you already know that payroll has never been more complex. Compliance risks are rising, skilled talent is scarce, and getting it wrong can cost your business way more than just money. It can cost you trust, retention, and of course, brand reputation. I'm Nick Day, host of this show and also CEO of JGA Recruitment Group, specialist global payroll recruiters. Here at JGA, we're so passionate about payroll, we've even turned it into music. Don't believe us? Head to your favorite audio platform and search for Payroll Powers the World, and you can quite literally join us in song about how we believe payroll deserves its moment in the boardroom to shine. At JGA, we'd like to think our passion shines through to our recruitment results as well. With a 97% retention rate and an average 19-day job brief to hire success rate, we work fast, we work strategically, and we work with purpose to connect you to the hidden payroll talent that job ads and direct search methods will simply never reach. So if you're hiring or indeed planning to hire, why not partner with the experts that are shaping the future of payroll? Partner with jgarecruitment.com today, or better yet, drop me a message directly, and together we can make sure your next payroll hire is your best one yet.
Yeah, that's the challenge. I'm not sure what the answer looks like there. I think if you can have some sort of control over the billing process, because I don't know how many payroll bureaus control their billing as well. We probably went from controlling about 40% of our billing when we started as a department to we're about 85% now, where we control the billing. So we control what gets billed, and if we need to go back to a client or to another partner, we can do that. So I think having some sort of control over what's billed would help. I think it's selling the value in payroll, but there was a recent webinar that you were on, Nick, that mentioned about, do we need to rebrand payroll? And I attended that because, do you know what? I don't know. I really generally don't know, but it was reassuring, particularly what you said, that no, we need to sell the value in payroll.
Yeah.
You can tell people what you do. I know what other departments do, and they don't need to tell me that. I trust them that they're going to price it correctly. But particularly with our tax team, they get across the value that's involved. It's quite easy for them to say, "Oh, right, I can understand why you're pricing it because of the value." So coming at it from a value point. So I think 6 to 9 months have passed now where I've thought, you know what, I'm getting challenged a bit more on our fees within the firm. And I think some people have forgotten what the payroll team did during furlough. I think that's been forgotten. So I shared a message on our intranet which said thank you to everyone. Thank you for all the referrals. We really appreciate that. I quoted some information I got from WageMate where they benchmarked pricing, which came up at an Association of Bureau Managers conference where they shared that information. And I looked at it and thought, they're not expensive. We're about middle-ish where people were pricing for payrolls and, one example of one director payroll. So I used that as an example and said, look, we're not expensive. But I then went on to the value in payroll. I didn't say, look, this is what we're doing. We're doing all of this. So I shared with them some stats I got from Ernst & Young, from SD Works. So Ernst & Young was saying, I think it's over 80% of organizations use payroll data for strategic decision making. That's quite valuable to get that payroll right then. And the SD Works stat was, I think it was just over 40% of employees will lose trust and faith in their employer if their pay is wrong or if it's late. And then just share with them the billions. It was 300 billion gets paid over in deductions.
Yeah.
To HM.
I think it's 24% if they're paid in the study I saw, which was by Kronos Workforce study, was 24% of employees would consider changing employer if they were paid incorrectly once in a calendar year. But that jumps to 49% if they're paid incorrectly twice in the same calendar year. So big jumps. And of course,
payroll tends to be only valuable when it goes wrong.
Yeah.
So I think if you're looking, just trying to get across the message of the value in payroll, rather than telling someone, if you're looking for that ally, explain the value, explain what value you're adding, rather than just saying, well, we're involved in the process and we do the uploading, we deal with the payments and that sort of thing. Move away from that and focus on the value, because that sometimes creates a better disturbance, I think. So it certainly helps with our internal leads. I get far less resistance. And again, having two managers like Amy and Zoe are just on the same wavelength, that we'll fight and battle to get the right fee for our work. So getting that value across and maybe having some, if you can't control the billing, have some oversight on it about what's being billed. I think that's really important as well. But
Okay.
yeah,
It's useful. I mean, obviously, for those that didn't join the webinar, I think it's still available on the Reward Strategy website. So if anyone's interested in seeing whether or not payroll should be rebranded or not, or does it need a rebrand, go and check it out. I'm quite staunch. No, I think most of the panel were of the same volition, but you'll hear the reasons why when you hear that. I think something that's interesting you brought up there is the Simon Sinek element. In terms of payroll, we're very good in payroll telling people what we do. We're not so good at telling people why we do it and how that makes a difference. And that's the difference. You know, it's great it's linking other metrics together. So for example, if you have a 97% on throwing about the accuracy rate on your payroll function, you're paying, I don't know, 10,000 employees. That's really impressive, but that's not the end of the statistic. Since you got to 97%, if it used to be say 94, actually our attrition has improved by 20%. Now we're paying people better and more effectively and more accurately. Less people are leaving our company. And actually we've been able to attract 20% more employees. So it's the knock-on impact, because that then speaks value to HR, it speaks value to the C-suite. It says, hey, God, since we got payroll right, we've been able to attract better talent. We've been able to retain better talent. We've been able to, be more productive. People feel more productive at work because they're not worried about their pay. There's so many little knock-on impacts. It's just going into the why element. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know from your perspective as well. Obviously, you are an ILM qualified coach, which I have huge respect for because I've gone through that qualification. I know it's not easy. It's a lot of work. What lessons have you learned along the way that you would pass on to other leaders in similar settings?
Ask for help when you need it. I think that's a really I mean, I learned that in the start of the first lockdown. I was new to being a partner, new to being head of payroll, working remotely, and just have that courage to ask for help. I think some people sometimes think because you've got the badge as a manager or a leader or as a partner that you know everything. You don't. So just heartfelt. And I've always been encouraged. I can remember when I've had my promotions, the senior promotions, I can remember our managing partner Martin saying to me that if you need this, expectations go up with the the promotion. If you want any help, just ask. And that's quite powerful to hear the head of your firm saying that. So I always say that to the team. I can't always help them if it's a payroll problem. And if they do have a problem, I know Amy and Zoe is so brilliant. If there is a problem, they come to me with a solution because they know I won't always find that for them. So they do run that past me. But I think just asking for help and asking questions and listening. So the listening skills I learned from qualifying as a coach, I thought I'd listened before, but I think sometimes you can broadcast, but you don't always receive.
We can listen with the intent to reply as well, right?
Yes. So I think that ability, so my listening skills changed completely with that coaching. Whereas you were trying to think, as I said earlier, but you're trying to think what the next question will be. But actually, if you genuinely listen, then the questions will come. But to genuinely listen, you've got to care about what's being spoken about in the first place. You have to care about it. So
I'll prove some listening skills to you here because I'm interested to find out something else about you here, which is you mentioned at the start of the show the link between payroll and financial wellness and financial health.
Right.
Tell me a little bit more about that. How do you think payroll? I've obviously got my views. I've spoken about it and I've written about it as well. But it'd be great to hear from your perspective and Vice Betty's perspective. How do you see that linking? How can we use payroll to be a real advocate for improving financial wellness? And we know there's very, very clear links between financial wellness and mental health as well. So I think there's a knock-on effect there. And for me, it's really exciting because this will help put payroll on the map. It's not just now paying people, it's looking after their well-being, their financial well-being, which links on so many other things. But I'd love to get your view.
I think, it's for me, it's the most critical thing with supporting financial well-being because we're paying the employees of the country. If we get it right, that's the starting point. If we get it wrong, that can be, it's such an emotive service line, isn't it?
It is.
Sometimes, it's not valued correctly. It isn't valued correctly, but it's such an emotive service line, more than any other service line that I can think of. So I think, the link with finance, for me, it's going to change soon because I think this employee self-service will come in. And that's where you'll really see financial well-being come into play. And I think at the moment, so earned wage access is what I'm talking about there. I think at the
Sure.
moment, yes, getting the pay right is the cornerstone of financial well-being, and that message isn't clear as the payroll. I don't think enough people are aware that's what payroll are delivering. But going forward with earned wage access, I think that's probably going to become a must-have rather than a nice thing to have at the moment. I think won't be prepared to wait. They won't be prepared to wait, and they want to. If there's an opportunity to have it, they will want to have their pay earlier. So that can only add to financial well-being if people can access their money earlier. You can set parameters for it. I believe with earned wage access, you can only limit
Sure.
them
Yeah,
to
you can.
what they get, and they've actually earned it. So there's limitations set to that. So I think it's not known enough that what it does at the moment, financial well-being, but that I think is something that will take it and put it really on the map in terms of financial well-being. That ability to, people can take their pay earlier, and just have more control over when they have their money, because we do live in a society where we don't wait. People don't want to wait for anything anymore, and maybe that will take people off weekly payrolls as well, because they're the hardest ones to
It could be
pick
the end of
for.
could be the dissolution of the monthly and weekly pay cycle if everyone
I
implements it,
think
which I think is an interesting question.
it could well be, and just giving employees that interaction with that service via their phones or their iPads or something like that, that'll really help that financial well-being for me.
And something else you mentioned earlier on when you were talking about how really Payroll found its voice at Price Bailey during the pandemic and your wonderful team and what they did to keep things moving and supporting your clients with furlough and everything else. You mentioned the amount of hours they were doing. Now, there's a lot of burnout in the payroll industry, a lot of payroll
Yeah.
people not taking their holidays, quite frankly, they've earned and they deserve because they're so worried
Mm.
if they go, there isn't the competence to manage it in their absence or whatever it might be. And it's very, very stressful. As you said just a moment ago, paying people is really critically important. It links to so many other things that fear, that innate fear of survival. If you're paid incorrectly, you suddenly think, well, if I can't make more, all those layers of things that we take responsibility for in payroll if you're processing it. It can be very, very stressful. So
Mhm.
what do you personally do to help maintain your mental health? And what advice do you give to your team about balance and resilience as well?
Um, well, during those furlough times, I mean, they just had to get on with it, didn't they? The work had to be done, so there was very little. So as a firm, we have smart working. So if you put in an extra shift, you can take the hours back when it's quieter. Clearly, there were no quiet times
Sure.
there.
Yeah.
So that was quite unique in that situation. We did have people that were struck. They did struggle. They did struggle, and that's quite understandable. I think message I get, it's all about self-care. So I think if you want to maintain your mental health, you just got to make sure you make time and be a little bit selfish and look after yourself and make sure you self-care. I think particularly it's still seen as a weakness. So we have mental health ambassadors within Price Bailey, and some of the payroll team are mental health ambassadors, so they can help people when they have mental health issues. It's still seen so much as a weakness, but try to make people understand if you think they have an issue. So actually, if you've got a mental health issue, you're far stronger than you think you are, because you're dealing with that. And as far as men are concerned, there was an article that Jake Humphrey put on LinkedIn earlier this week, said we need a new masculinity. I think he did an article about Ricky Hatton. And that was quite powerful. I think amongst men, there's still a big issue with mental health. And I've done a video on LinkedIn for Price Bailey about, I'm happy to talk about it. So
Yeah.
it's not always easy to talk about it. So if you aren't comfortable talking about it, just try and look after yourself. I try. The simplest thing I did, I thought I got to a point where I was struggling with my own mental health. I did struggle with it, but I'm in a really good place now. I think back to what did I do? What was I doing at the time? And it was just little steps becoming habits. So something simple as walking. It's a really does that help? So this is me walking 2 or 3 times a day. Phone's firmly in my pocket. It's not out. No earbuds. No earbuds at all. And just trying to live in that moment. And it can be as short as 5 or 10 minutes, can be as much as half an hour. And I find if I don't have that time, I can feel sometimes some anxiety, because I suffer from anxiety. That's the thing that gets me. That's how my day-to-day mental health is an anxiety thing. But I'm in a really good place now with it, and that's just come down to self-care from from walking, from exercising. And when you have those bad thoughts, just trying to reflect and just reframe them, because I don't know what the percentages of thoughts you think about, how often do they actually happen? It's a pretty low percentage that actually happen, and just try to reframe them into something positive. And I've just become more grateful. That might be with age. I don't know. It might be with age, but I'm just more grateful for what I've got in life. A wife, 2 daughters, great job, great work-life balance. So it's just making sure the team recognise that, and they take time outs. And where there have been some issues within the team, I'll catch up with that team member, because I know what they've been through. Some of the stuff that I've been through with my family, where we've lost the generations above us. If I hear that within the team, I just want to make sure, because you can really have some empathy with them for what they're going through. It's not easy times. Something I've done which isn't easy for other people to do is I just use LinkedIn now. Social media, I don't use Instagram, don't use Facebook. I might look at Twitter now and again. And reading a book by Johann Hari, Stolen Focus. Don't know if you know that one. There's one that Barry
No.
Matthews recommended to me, a really good book. And that is such an eye-opener if you read how people's focus and attention has been taken from them by social media, and how that does impact on your mental health.
We cover. I'll do a little plug here that might be useful for our listeners. I have 3 podcast shows, but one of mine is called Mindful Paths, and I do it with a co-host. It's not a guest show; it's myself and a co-host. We've been going for a couple of years, but that's all about mindfulness, gratitude techniques, and vulnerability. We share our own vulnerabilities. I talk about me losing my dad and various things that have happened in my life. So people are interested in those kind of things. Harry Kalimnios, who's my co-host partner in that podcast. He's a published author. He's just released a book this week called Super Vitality. He's published several books on the subject. So if people are really interested in this, by all means, reach out to me directly, and I can put you in touch, or I can help on that side of things as well. There's a great quote that I sort of read every day to my morning, which is, your day doesn't dictate your mood dictates your day. Sometimes, if you start with gratitude in the morning, it can really help. I was interested as well, you mentioned the walking piece. There's a Latin phrase called salvator ambulando. It's and if you haven't heard that before, it means solved by walking. And it refers to what people used to do years ago. When they had a problem, they would go for a walk or take a walk. And most of your problems can, I wouldn't say go, but they can be reduced, or they can dissipate slightly. So walking and
But you get
grounding
the
in
chan-
nature is always
yeah,
really
you get
important.
the chance just to reframe them a bit. Sometimes when I'm walking with the dog, the dog doesn't judge me at all. I can just chat to our dog when I'm walking, and I
Yeah.
just find, I'm just amazed how much impact that's had on me. But I've listened to what you mentioned, vulnerability. Then what I was listening to another Jay Comfrey podcast, Jason Fox, one of the SAS
Yeah, I know
celebrities,
Jason. Yeah.
does the show SAS Who Dare Wears, and they asked him what's his key strength. And you might expect him to say, oh, my physical attributes or my resilience. But he said his biggest strength is his vulnerability. And that is so powerful for someone in that position. If I could pick someone to coach me right now, I'd pick Jason Fox, because he's been through, and he shares what he's been through as well. So it's quite powerful. I like you've used that word, vulnerability, and I other people that I speak to in higher positions than me, once they mention that they've got some vulnerability, it just opens them up, and it just you connect. I think there's a connection you make, because maybe you're going through something similar. So going back to what you said, just sharing with the team, I'm happy to share with the team, some of the stuff I've been through, and they get some bad times in life, but you find your way through it. But you just got to make sure you look after yourself. So like you with the family above, when you lose the generations above you, you suddenly realize, I'm top in the family tree now.
Right? Look,
You- you-
we play an infinite game, and sometimes the news that hits us, and obviously I work in recruitment, so we have people losing jobs, being made redundant. In that moment, they feel like it's bad news. And I always say, hold on, we don't know if it's bad news yet. It feels it in the moment, because you're in that survival, fight or flight moment where you think, I've got an income, I need to find a job. It's a tough employment market. Okay, they're all variables that can impact how you feel. You change the way you think, you change the way you feel anyway. There's a great saying that every feeling lives in the shadow of a thought. So if we can change or reframe that thinking process and go, actually, we don't know how it plays out. Because quite often I'll speak to candidates who have been made redundant. They tell me it's the worst news ever. They're really struggling. 6 months later, they found their dream job, and they're saying it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And that's, we've got to be mindful of it. you play an infinite game of life. It's not like a game which has a 90-minute beginning and end. So
No, both of
everyone,
my daughters, I was going to say, both of my daughters have been made redundant in the past 6 months. They've had a redundancy. Both found new work. One within the existing firm, which was a promotion, effectively.
wow.
And my younger daughter, who got made redundant recently, has found new work already. But it's just, yeah, there's tears, and I can totally understand how they're feeling initially, but it's just maybe that's some coaching coming out. And as they've got older,
Probably from both of us. I think we could probably
they
talk about this subject
yeah,
for some
they
time. And I
understand my
say,
coaching. Yeah, they understand it a bit better than they did when they were teenagers.
sure.
They listen to it a bit more now. But yeah, it's just tried to. Yeah, it's not great, and it's not great what you're feeling. It's going to suck, but just look forward and look. It's a life lesson. It's a life
Well,
lesson.
there's an acronym you might like. It might maybe I think this might ring true for you, Stuart. But there's an acronym called FAIL, which is first attempt in learning. And I think that can be quite powerful. And we don't win and lose, we win and learn. And sometimes it can sound like a cliche, but cliches exist for a reason. There's something in them usually. I think we need to listen to it and ultimately just be more kind. Everyone's going through something. I think that's the key. And we don't know what it is. And we can face it up and think we're invincible. But usually behind the scenes, everyone is going through something. So I think it's a good lesson just to be more kind. My last question, and I'm going to stay on that sort of coaching theme for a moment. You are clearly a reflector. I think that comes through when you learn the coaching process anyway. You reflect more, you sit back and you look at things. Looking where the industry is now, reflecting on all the technological advances, the shift in the way that payroll is now perceived post-pandemic, what are you excited about for the future? Where do you think we're headed?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think the payroll and benefits, people are really scared by that, but I see it as a massive opportunity. To again, I think when that hits in, that could be like furlough times, how busy the team are with getting benefits on. So I see that as a massive opportunity for us, and the whole payroll, HR, employment law integration as well. So I think it's really exciting times brought about by HMRC making changes with the payroll and benefits. And I think as well, with the way automation is moving and the way that, platforms can interact with other platforms, I just see it as being able to put payroll further onto the map than it is right now. Because I think, it is so you're going back when payroll was shown as a service lines, accounts, company secretarial, tax, payroll, and some other services as well, P11Ds. But now payroll is listed with about a dozen service lines. So we have a tube map at work that we use for our services.
Nice.
It's got so big now that we've got to change it because people just can't read it. And I looked at that a few months back. Our marketing partner sent it to me, and we had one station called payroll. We're then outsourcing, and that's my bad because I should have looked at it earlier than I did. So actually, we're doing a lot more. So we're a bit like the Elizabeth line now. We've got our own line.
It's added in the Elizabeth line.
Goes
Yeah,
right through, but it links in with HR and it links in with employment law because we have both of those arms
sure.
within our firm. So it's a really exciting time for payroll, I think.
Well, I think that's
There's
a good place.
opportunities there to grow, but it's just making sure people, when the payroll and benefits come in, just don't give it away. I think we've come a long way. I think fewer people will be giving it away,
Yeah.
but we just got to keep getting that message across and just to use payroll to get it further on the map, closer to that C-suite, closer to the strategic decision making by working with HR and employment law as well, selling it as a rounded service like that. I think it's really exciting.
It's making it a centre of excellence. But I love the fact that you said that you're excited by the future. I hope people listening to this are also excited by the future. I run a recruitment agency in payroll. I have to be excited by the future. If I thought AI was going to replace payroll, I wouldn't have a business myself. And I'm hugely excited about what's coming next. So
Yeah.
I'm delighted that you share that passion and share that excitement with me. Let's open the payroll vault. So 3 short, sharp questions here for you, Stuart. First one is this. One piece of advice you'd give to someone starting out in payroll today.
Wow. Starting in payroll today. I think I used the expression earlier about just always ask questions. I think for me, I think probably in whatever role you do, I use the trust triangle. So if you want to do well in a team, get respected and progress. If you can be, so the choice is about being authentic, logical, or I think they use the term reliable, and showing empathy. If you can develop those traits, I think you would get on well in any team, not just in payroll. Payroll people have bags of empathy because they just want to get people's pay right, and it really shows when it goes wrong. So I would just say to people, be yourself. Don't pretend to be something else. That logical reasoning thing is just ask questions. If you want help, just ask questions and just show some empathy. The people that I truly connect with have that trust triangle. And that can be within my peers and the colleagues I work with within the payroll team and other departments. So if you can develop that sort of philosophy in life, I think you'll go far.
And it's nice. It's good for people listening to this to realize the importance of those softer skills. It's not just about technical knowledge. It's about those
It's not
softer
all about
skills. And they're
numbers.
really,
It's not all about
yeah,
numbers.
they're a valuable currency in the current market of those softer skills. What's
Yeah.
one thing you now know that you wish you'd known earlier in your career?
Oh, I probably wish I would have got involved in payroll sooner than I did.
Nice.
But
That'll
maybe
resonate.
that was just I don't know what that would have looked like. I really don't know what that would have looked
Sure.
like. But yeah, if we'd have recognised maybe earlier, it's all with hindsight, isn't it? But if I'd have become head of payroll earlier than I did, because there were some really hard times when the auto enrollment came out. I can remember that coming through because payroll was within our business team. There wasn't much discussion on what fees were going to be charged for that. And I know some smaller firms that I meet through this Association of Bureau Managers, they're still not charging for it. It's kind of just
Yeah.
thrown away. So I think, maybe if I had how I feel right now, had that earlier to have helped with some of the really big changes that came along in payroll, might have made more of a difference. But we've made up a lot of time. But maybe
You found your way in the end. You found the best
maybe
industry in the end. It took a few years, but you got there in the end. That's
it
all right.
was my choice. It was my choice to do it, and it was an instant decision. So
Well, I love
maybe
that. I'm a big advocate for owning the choice. I don't like all this
yeah,
falling into. I want to say, hey, no, I chose this profession, and it's
yes,
a fantastic one.
yeah. So maybe
Last one then for you, a little bit of fun for you, Stuart. If payroll was a song, a movie, or a book, what would it be and why?
I'll tell you, a good song during and at the end of furlough would be "I'm Still Standing" by Elton John.
Oh, no, that's
Um,
good. It's a new one. Not had it before.
yeah,
I like it.
I love my favourite group's The Jam. They covered a song "Move On Up" by Curtis Mayfield, and there's some really inspiring lyrics. So I knew this might be one of the questions. I do like to plan and prepare, and chuck it into Copilot. And the meaning of that song is it encourages us to realize that progress, success can be achieved with hard work, perseverance, and commitment. And I think, wow, that does epitomize the payroll team. So, if
Nice.
anyone wants to listen to that song and listen to some of the words in there, it does kind of epitomize what the payroll team do and what they deliver. So, yeah, I'll
What
choose.
people don't know is that Stuart did try and get me to disclose what those 3 questions would be in the vault today, and I refused. I said it'll be a mixture of the ones I've asked before, but I'm not going to tell you which ones. So I don't know how many you prepared for, but I did throw that one in there. I was interested to know, and I'm glad you're a Jam fan. I love my music. So
Yeah.
that's a great one to be a fan of. Look, Stuart, thank you ever so much for joining me today on the Payroll Podcast. I'm going to take this opportunity, if anyone really is keen on finding out more about mindfulness, techniques for biohacking, for super vitality, for mindset. Actually, I don't do this very often, but there's a plug from my other show. It's called Mindful Past. I know many of you already listened to it, but if you haven't discovered it yet, you may find you might find that interesting if that's a space that you want to find out more about. And my co-host on that show has just released his book called Super Vitality as well, which is fantastic. But of course, what struck me today is your journey, Stuart, how much payroll has had an impact on you, your passion for this profession, which you found late in your career, but has been everlasting ever since, and how it's for you, it's much more about people than it is about process. It's about leadership. It's about coaching. It's about reflection. It's about well-being and how that can transform, not just careers, but full organizations, departments, profit centers, and more. So thank you ever so much for joining me today on the Payroll Podcast. I think it's been a really interesting insight from someone who's coming from a slightly different perspective, that accountant's view, which I think comes through, but also the bureau view. We try and represent all different types of payroll on the show. So thank you ever so much for joining me today. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, please do remember to click subscribe. Please do remember to follow the show. If you can leave a review, that'd be wonderful, but please share it. That's the key. Let's get this message out there about just how valuable, important, and impressive payroll really is. I will, of course, put some links in the show notes as well. If you want to find out more about Price Bailey, or if you want to connect with Stuart, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, Stuart, thank you ever so much for joining me today on the Payroll Podcast.
Thanks, Nick. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Global teams are more connected today than ever, but managing payroll, HR, and IT can still feel fragmented. But Deel simplifies global work with one platform that keeps everything running smoothly. No compliance guesswork, no third-party payroll, just seamless operations backed by 24/7 expert support. That's why over 35,000 companies trust Deel to handle their global workforce. Visit deel.com/nickday to see how Deel can help. That's DEEL.com/NICKDAY. Deel, your forever people platform.